I've mentioned it. Let's start no other place than 3-0 against Leeds, Ellen Road. Tough ground to go to. A lot of history between the two clubs, which I kind of forgot about until I'd done a bit of history digging before the game. But just trying to assess in some sort of nutshell the game itself, line up, just assess, give me your overall assessment of the game and how it went.
I think every single person that watched it would know that we were very, very poor. We were very, very poor. And if anything, Leeds could have scored more than 3 on the day. And it was a well-deserved win for them and a well-deserved defeat for us. You just got to hold up your hand and say we got it completely wrong on the day. I think there's a lot of different factors that contributed to the defeat for us. I think some of the players' work rate and mentality was very, very poor on the day, particularly those offensive players that, we've criticised Lukaku so much last season for not doing enough to get the ball, to be in the right position. Then the same can be said about Havertz, Mount, and those players, because I think their work rate was really poor, their mentality was really poor. They should be creating chances for themselves rather than expecting the ball to fall at their feet all the time. I think we can criticise maybe Tuchel for the lineup he played. I think it was a predicted lineup, but clearly things didn't work out. Conor Gallagher in a double pivot in midfield didn't work. I think it was the first time we tested out him making his start. He had a very difficult, I don't want to say poor because he was being played out of position, but it was a very difficult debut for him. And I think if we were to play him again, it needs to be in a 3-man midfield, I think, with a 4 at the back. Other players, again, I think Koulibaly, we praised him in the previous episode, but I think he gave away a silly foul and he got a yellow card quite early on. And even that second yellow was just pointless. You're 3-0 down, don't do that. You're now going to miss the game against Leicester. It's silly. And substitutions as well. Maybe they came a bit too late. I would have liked to see a couple of subs at half time. That falls on Tuchel. Tuchel again, after the game, kind of blaming other factors like the coaching staff having to travel on a train than a plane. He started to sound a bit like Klopp, at this rate. It's just a really frustrating day. Me as a Chelsea fan, I accepted that defeat, but clearly some of the players and the manager didn't accept it. And then I've just seen that Pulisic has posted a picture on Instagram with the 2 Leeds American players with the American flag. Clearly, he's already forgotten about the defeat. So it's disappointing. I think work rate, mentality, managers' tactics, managers' formation, I think a combination of all of those kind of led to the defeat.
I agree 100%. I think there's so many things that when you look back at a game where, you expect a difficult game against Leeds. They're a high pressing team. They press, which they did, credit to them. They done what they needed to do. But there's so many factors that from the back end of last season, pre-season, that we kind of thought, okay, we'll get away with maybe, bringing in Koulibaly or bringing in aheemSterling. That might help with those issues, but they seem to be getting worse. There's no real indication that all these issues that we had kind of at the back end, Mendy, goalkeeper playing out from the back. Why are we including him in the build-up of play? If he's not confident with his feet, then just let's not pass the ball back to Mendy, because this is now the 3rd, maybe 4th time that he's done something where you just question what part of his brain is he using to not just clear the ball out, just kick it out for a corner. I'm sure we've said this before. Kick it out for a corner, kick it out for a throw-in, just kick it in the defender's face if you have, just kick the ball somewhere so it's not going, in the goal. I just don't understand that. So there's so many things, and I think you're spot on with Tuchel. I think especially with the fan base, and you go online and you see people say, Tuchel out or Tuchel in, and, we're not allowed to criticise Tuchel. We are allowed to criticise Tuchel. We're allowed to criticise the players, because at the end of the day, just because we're criticising it, we praise them just as much. Criticism comes with that as well. And I think, there has been certain things that Tuchel's done, and, I think back, maybe could we have used, Aspilicueta as a right centre back, and maybe use Reece James as the right wing back, or do we go back to a back 4? I've been screaming Mason Mount should be in that sort of midfield for me, or maybe Conor Gallagher. Conor Gallagher in a double pivot with Jorginho. That was setting him up to fail. That is a massive. If that doesn't scream out that we need a CDM, Ethan Ampadu potentially should have been playing as alongside Jorginho in that game, because yes, he's not the answer to the solution. Or the problem, sorry, but he's definitely someone that, on loan last season was able to play in that. You know, we know that he can play CDM. He can play in that midfield as a double pivot. We know he can do it. So why is he on the bench? Why is he not? Why is he not included? I felt it was harsh on Conor Gallagher because I think, you know, he's not. I mean, he played okay. I don't want to single him out. He played okay, but in the first half, you could see he was a bit of a loss in terms of what the expectations of him were. You know, and I think defensively he was exposed a lot, which then exposed the three centre backs, which then put a lot of pressure on them as well, and it kind of restricted, you know, Reece James and Cucurella going forward in that game, I thought, but.
I'm not optimistic. I'm really not optimistic from what I've seen so far. The Spurs performance was promising, but we still dropped points. The Leeds result, that's a fixture any other season we should be winning. We won it 3-0 last season in a period that we weren't actually performing that well. It's quite worrying. I wouldn't say worrying, but it's times as Chelsea fans, we've got a lot of questions to ask about the mentality of the players, about the manager's formation, about the tactics, about some of the players that are currently still in the team that aren't featuring, about some of the players that have been sent out on loan or are going to be sent out on loan. It's quite confusing, but I think come the end of August, there may be a bit more clarity. We find out on Thursday as well who our Champions League opposition might be in the groups. But, you know, with pot 2, we could be drawing against a Madrid or a PSG, and then there's curtains for us to, you know, early on in a way, based on what we've seen so far. So there's a lot of questions still to be asked, but let's just stay optimistic, try to stay optimistic and say we'll still battle for top 4.